Hi, I'm Saga Stephen. Welcome to Floridian Future, where we take a closer look at how the political process actually works here in Florida beyond the headlines and talking points. Our goal here is to give you a clear understanding of the system straight from the people inside of it. And today we are sitting down with Neil Combee. Neil is a lifelong Lakeland resident with a background in agribusiness and real estate. Over the years, he served on Polk County Commission, the Southwest Florida Water Management District, in the Florida House of Representatives, and at the federal level with the USDA, and today he serves as Polk County Property Appraiser. And this is a great opportunity to walk through what these roles actually do and how decisions get made and how everyday citizens can step in and be part of the process. So Neil, welcome, and thank you very much for taking the time to chat with us. And with your robust resume, I was so impressed. You are a wealth of information you probably don't even realize. So with all the different offices that you've served in Florida on different levels, first off, thank you so much for all your many years of service to the state of Florida. So can you tell us, being a lifelong Polk County resident, what first got you interested in public service?
Well, that's an easy one to answer. When I was a young boy, uh, on the same road that I grew up on, my dad had a cousin, and he was a county commissioner, and I was around him an awful lot when I was little. He was real active in at least our part of the county, and a lot of people were particularly fond of him, and thought he did a great job helping them. And I said, "Hey, one day I'm going to do that." So that probably by the time I was 12 years old, that was my number one goal.
Well, that's a great
Very,
goal.
very early.
Um, my next question was what drew you to the county commission seat, and that answered that. What does someone, and this I can relate to because you helped me when I ran for mayor, you helped me tremendously. What does someone not understand about running for office the first time?
Well, in this day and age, it seems like it takes a lot more resources to run a campaign, especially when you're in a county the size of Polk with 850,000 people. Just geographically speaking, Polk County's a big county, and it takes a lot of time, effort, energy, resources to cover the county. Needless to say, it's not 100% guaranteed. The more coverage you get, the more you can contact people from, all four corners and everything in between, the better off, your chances are having success. And it just takes a lot to get that done.
Yeah, it does. It takes a lot of door knocking. It just takes a lot. It's like a full-time job. So when you were on the county commission, what does a county commissioner actually do? What does the job encompass?
Well, it's changed over the years, and it changed when we became a charter county. Uh,
Can you
really,
explain what a charter county is?
yeah, charter county is like having our own constitution per se, like a state constitution, but then you have a county constitution. Counties who are not charter counties are called constitutional counties, and we are, basically bound, guided by uh, guardrails are the state constitution. With the charter, you can, put a lot of different things before the people and see if they vote for it. And that's what we did back in 98. I don't know that it was a good thing, but, the majority of the board wanted to go that route, thought it would, bring more professionalism to the day-to-day management of the county government. Because prior to that, even prior to me getting on the commission, the transportation dollars in the county would be divided up five ways. And it really, each commissioner had their budget to, do with what they wanted to do in their district. And needless to say, there were probably some areas that needed more of the resources than to accomplish a job to make improvements. And so it wasn't necessarily the best way to do business, but that's how it was done for years. Now, I tend to think that they probably got together. Some of this, a lot of it was pre-sunshine law, and
Mm.
they said, "Okay, I'll give you, 300,000 for this project over here, and then next year maybe you can help me out." So they probably took those dollars and put them together in some places, the urban areas when they needed to get a project completed. But it was divided up, 5 ways, and each commissioner controlled that dollar amount, decided how it'd be spent.
And can you just also briefly tell about what the sunshine law is?
Well, sunshine law says that any business that the commissioners conduct, it has to be in a public notice meeting. They can't discuss county business outside of the published, announced, uh, open door meetings. And I guess that, needless to say, was a problem for a long time. People would get together at the end of the day, and we all, you hear the way that was described as the smoke filled back room somewhere making a deal on what are we going to do with this. But so that changed, and I know it's better because all the dollars go into the transportation improvement program, and it's adopted. You have a 5-year work program that's adopted, so there's better methodology these days for allocating those dollars and trying to get them to work and get projects funded and designed and completed, which you probably couldn't do under that old system every
Yeah.
time out of the gate. It was a little different.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that are different and it keeps changing too. So, as a county commissioner, because it is an elected position, I'm assuming there's term limits?
Well, the charter brought term limits. Prior to that, there were no term limits. There's
Oh,
no
wow,
term
okay.
limit in the state constitution. So as long as we were a constitutional county and not a charter county, then there weren't any limits placed on how many terms, consecutive or otherwise, somebody could serve. But the in the charter, it was limited to 2 consecutive terms, and it's since been amended. I think maybe in 2014 to allow for 3 consecutive terms. And
Interesting.
the voters, it was put before them. I think they thought they were maybe limiting it even more, and they actually were expanding the time people could spend. A lot of people
Yeah,
were confused by the wording of the ballot, to be honest with you.
that happens a lot. So, as a county commissioner, how much authority does this role actually have?
Under the charter, the only people that answer to the county commissioners are the county manager and the county attorney. So county commissioners can't direct any employees beyond the county manager or county attorney to, perform any kind of work or task. So that's all up to the county manager, and 100% is delegated. So the only authority you have is over the county manager and county attorney under the charter, and that's generally true with any charter county.
Yeah, or city. So, what's something that people think that the county controls, but actually it doesn't?
Well, it's a good question. One I might have to think about. I think they probably think we control a lot of things that we don't control,
It's true.
uh, but a lot of the stuff that we do is still controlled by the Constitution. Just because you're a charter county, that doesn't, you know, totally replace the state constitution and limitations that may be placed on counties and cities, through the Constitution. It really just allows people to, tailor something that they think will better suit the county, based on that period of time. And
So,
again, it started off with 2 terms consecutive. Now it's gone to 3. I mean, it could go to 4 or go back to 2 if that got on the ballot. And there's 2 ways that things can get on the ballot. The county commission can, put a question on the ballot related to the charter, amending the charter. You know, Voters can go out and get petitions, and if they get enough of them, they can put a question on the ballot. The county commission's obligated, if they achieve enough signatures, to put the question on the ballot.
interesting. So that's how citizens can play a bigger role than is gathering petitions to put something on there.
Yeah, but
Um,
it's just like amending the state constitution. It is extremely difficult to to get over that hurdle and get enough signatures to place something on the ballot. And
It
you know,
actually should be, though, because if it was
it
too
should,
easy, we'd be voting
yeah,
on all kinds of goofy.
there's no question it should be. But the legislature can, put, uh, with a vote of the legislature, a favorable vote, they can put anything on the ballot related to the state constitution, and the county commission can put questions on the ballot as well. It just doesn't happen very often,
Interesting.
but it does happen, but infrequently.
Okay, so we're gonna go to one of your other many positions is the Southwest Florida Water Management District. Most people have not a clue as to what this is or what they do, what they oversee. Can you give us an overview on what it is? Because it's also referred to as SWFMD, I believe,
Yes.
and what they do, what they control, and basically just what it is.
Well, there's 5 water management districts in the state, divided. I think it's one of the Panhandle, it's Swanee River, but the big 3 are Southwest and South Florida and St. John's, but specifically Southwest, which we are in, covers 16 counties of 67, down to Lee County and all the way up to Citrus County, and then 16 counties in Southwest, but it's really, in my opinion, it's West Central Florida, but it's called Southwest. And, we are the second largest next to South Florida, which is a behemoth. Their budget's just an unbelievable amount of money. They've got big canals and they've got pumps and they maintain all of that. And it initially started off as flood control was how it started, but it has certainly evolved into, much more than flood control. It's, a lot of environmental protection that came out of the water management districts where they're acquiring land for conservation, especially some that may be in a critical spot and that may deal with flooding, that may deal with, um, you know, environmental protection. You really don't know. But all the governing board members are appointed by the governor and
Okay.
confirmed by the Senate, and they serve with there's no pay. It's a volunteer position, and just you oversee, in this case, the executive director and the general counsel. So just like with the county commission, the only authority the governing board members have, or the only people they direct, are the director and the attorney for the district. But it's a taxing authority. I mean, if they get their revenue from property tax, and I think there's probably occasionally some allocations from the legislature, depending on special projects. But I don't believe every year that there's money coming from Tallahassee from general revenue or any other source that
Well,
goes to
is
the
this
district.
is this the governing body that would also, because I know that Florida, it's almost like we're in a perpetual drought. I don't think people understand our aquifers are low. So is this the governing body that kind of oversees that also?
Yes. Yes. And over the years, they've developed water use caution areas where they've tried to limit permits. They limit watering more quickly when we are in a dry period. So they do regulate that, but any public supply permits have to be issued by the district, and they're to determine the impacts to private property owners, whether that's homeowners or whether it's citrus growers or strawberry growers or whoever relies on groundwater for to grow their crop.
Well,
They're
what
all
about like in Zephyr Hills, they have, was it Crystal Water, different companies there that I believe are, that's why you can't go to Crystal Springs anymore because they're using the water. Does Swift Mud regulate that as well?
Yeah, I don't know that that's why you can't go to Crystal Springs anymore. A lot of the spring flows, they're only capturing what's coming out. So they would be scalping water that would ultimately wind up in the Hillsborough River, but they're really not doing much unless they're pumping from the ground.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
They would not impact the pressure that's there that provides the spring flow. But all the withdrawals over the years really dried up a lot of springs. And the most famous one is Kissington Springs in Bartow, and it has not flowed in many, many years. Now, I will tell you, just based on growing up around Saddle Creek, where there were flowing springs around there when I was young, I don't really remember them, but I hear about them a lot. Flow stopped with phosphate mining because as a part of the mining process back in the early days, they did a lot of dewatering. They'd start digging a hole and drop a big pump in and start pumping the water out to get it out of the way. So they were moving, large quantities of water from beneath the surface into Saddle Creek and the Peace River and Charlotte Harbor and the Gulf of Mexico.
I'm
And
assuming all
they've
that has
changed,
stopped
they've
now.
changed those practices changed many, many years ago. But at that point, we had a lot of straws sticking in the ground, pulling out water. And but it's a constant battle to try to make sure that they don't over permit and that they try to limit those withdrawals. And it's not a lot of fun. When I was on the board, the Water Management District provided tremendous funding for the Tampa Bay Water Desal plant. And the problem is it could have been maybe written better, but their position later on, because they were not maxing out their groundwater permits, is that plant was to be used for peaking only. So when they really were getting close to their permitted quantity from the ground, then they would run the plant. Our view was that they should run the plant 24/7, 365 and lay off the groundwater. But their position was that, we've got these permitted quantities from the ground. It's cheaper and it doesn't sound like much, but if it was, 10 cents a gallon cheaper, they wanted to pull it out of the ground rather than run the desal plant, which is more expensive. I don't know exactly how hard that plant's running now or how often it's running, but it was a very expensive build and
Hmm.
it certainly works, but there's no question just cranking a pump up, pulling it out of the ground is and was and will probably always be a cheaper way to do it if there's quantities available for, groundwater. But we were pushing permits down, reducing their permits when we put the desal, when they built it, we had provided funding for it. And in addition to that, we also built a couple of reservoirs. One's a Bill Young Reservoir on the Alafai River. And then we built a massive reservoir, which was actually 1,200 acres
Wow.
down at the Peace River near Charlotte Harbor, Punta Gorda. And, fill those things up when you get large flows, a lot of water flowing, scalp it, divert it in there because all of it's going to tide anyway. And when you get a hurricane, Milton or Irma or some of these other storms come through, we got a lot of spare water, and that's the time that they were diverting when you get those, really in the rainy season, heavy rainfall. They were filling those reservoirs and then using those for potable for public supply, which is a good. I love them. The reason I love them is because you can stand out there and see what you got. You
That's
know,
true.
you're not really left wondering what's happening below the ground if you're pulling the water off the top. So
Is
that
there
was
a way to refill the aquifers? Is there
uh,
s I mean,
yeah. I mean, technically, yes, you can do it with recharge wells, but they don't like recharge wells for fear of contamination. A lot of people have always been, leery of doing too much in that case. But when you look at, I forget the number, it was some significant number in Orange County around the Orlando area where they had drainage issues that they put in. They called them in the old days, they called them drainage wells, which they would drill a well and put the casing well below the water. And so it was always taking water back into the ground. And then later on, they called them recharge wells, but they just don't like them. They like the water to, get there naturally, going back through the sands and through limestone and back in there and remove, impurities the way
oh, that's true.
they intended it to be.
Yeah, I don't know how we would recharge or refill that. I don't
It,
know.
it take a
That's
lot
over
of,
my head.
yeah, it take a lot of big holes in the ground and trying to force water back in.
Yeah, that's true. So, but anyway, we need to be very careful with our water. We don't
Yeah,
have unlimited water.
the district operates monitoring wells all over the 16 counties. Those are electronically monitored, so they can tell, what water levels are doing, and they fluctuate. They've been, you know, dangerously low, it seemed like, uh, and it was attributed to phosphate, but there's an area called the Red Hole in Manatee County, getting pretty close to the coast over there, and, that was phosphate territory, and
Mm.
it really had gotten pretty well depleted in that area. It takes a long time for water to move underground through the system. Some of it's pretty porous and some of it's, not so much, but it takes a while to kind of backfill that. So they were trying to limit any kind of withdrawals around the red hole. And I hadn't heard
Wow.
much about the red hole lately. When you're on the governing board, you get a lot of information that you otherwise would not pick up on local news or in a newspaper.
Right. Well, I bet you do. So, like, I have a well in my backyard that I use for my sprinkler system. I'm assuming that's not
I
aiding and abetting the drought.
I wouldn't publicize that much.
Okay. I was just kidding. It was like maybe I have one.
Yeah. There's a lot of people that have irrigation wells that on large properties. There are people that continue to withdraw out of lakes. They permitted some of those. I don't know, that
Wow.
they do some irrigation out of the lake, and I can't give you the specifics on all of them. Some of them were for irrigating actually citrus back in the day, and some are just small homeowner wells that use them for irrigation rather than using, public supply, whatever's coming through the meter at the front. You really, you know, don't want to be using that if you can keep from it. But not everybody has that luxury. And I would say it's a luxury to be able to have an irrigation well and not have to rely on, municipal water for lawn irrigation.
It is a very old home with a very old yard.
Yeah.
So okay, well, let's go to yet another position that
You're
you
you're
held.
probably you're probably grandmothered in.
Yes, I believe I am. Thank you very much. So you are also a Florida State House representative. So when you went from local government to state government, what's the biggest difference between local and state? Local meaning county, of course.
There's a lot because with the county commission in our county, we got 5 board members. And if you can get 3 members to agree, you can paint the whole county red if you got enough money to buy the paint. It's just 3 people that are making the decision, in this case, for, a little under 1,000,000, or it takes 3 to do something. When you get to the legislature, there's 160 members there. There's 40 in the Senate, 120 in the House. Occasionally you need super majorities to do certain things, but so it's a lot harder to get something through there. Um, I enjoyed it immensely. It was probably the most fun that I had, in politics because the county commission, there's a lot of things that we do there that aren't fun. And similar with the legislature, but if there's any misery involved, you get to spread it over 160 people instead of 3.
True.
But it was really a good time for me to be there. It was a time when we had a bunch of people who were trying to figure out ways to reduce the cost of government for folks and to limit it and make sure that we're not getting any tax increases. We're going to try to find ways to give money back to people. Uh, when you can do that, that's fun.
We need more people in there that have that goal in mind. Because at least if you go in there with that in mind and you have friends that are there with you to do that, then at least the possibility is there to get that done.
Well, I served under Will Weatherford, the first speaker, then Steve Crisafulli, and then Richard Corcoran. Was the last, and Richard was really interested in trying to find ways to, reduce the cost of state government and, return money. And then they come up with the tax holidays, which a lot of people benefit from and they enjoy it, they like it.
Yeah,
Unfortunately, right now, they've been unable to agree on a ballot question regarding the reduction of property tax. Hopefully, I don't know if they will get something out of the special session, but hopefully, if they don't get something through the special session, then this next session they'll come up with something because I do believe that a lot of people need relief when you look at the the cost of homeowners insurance and property taxes on the rise. And when I was my last 4 years on the county commission, because I served 16, then I was away from the county for 16 and then back for 4 years. So that was the 4 years from 20 to 24.
Mhm.
And we reduced the millage rate every year that 4 years that I was there, but we still were getting more revenue annually, significantly more revenue because of the growth. And the thing in this role that I'm in now, this is the part that's hard for people to understand is the Save Our Homes cap
Mhm.
and portability. Those things are voter approved, which they're wonderful, wonderful features in our state constitution. But with that cap, home values, property values can be going down. The boards, the tax authorities could reduce their millage rate, but you would still pay more in taxes because of the cap. If you have $30,000 or $50,000 in cap, while the taxes rate may go down, while values may go down, your tax bill will still go up trying to catch up to that ceiling that's there. So it would take a huge loss of value for a lot of people to see really any reduction in their taxes right now under the current uh, framework we have, because there's just so much cap. You're going to go up 3% um, or maximum, or the cost of living, whichever less. So you're looking at 3% every year. So until you get back up to 100% of your value, which is really 85%, that
Mhm.
sounds crazy, but we have to figure out what market is. Then we take that, which would be a 100% number. We reduce it by 15% to 85. So 85 is our target because it's been determined by the Department of Revenue and maybe the legislature that 15% that we take off, uh, the 100%, the real market value is for the cost to sell, the cost to do whatever you need to do
True.
to get rid of your property. So it's not like somebody's going to come up and give you 100,000. There's going to be cost involved with that for the seller, the homeowner. So you take 15% off, but still, yeah, with the cap, you may have $100,000 in savings through our Save Our Homes, and until you get up to that level, even if, like I say, it's kind of hard. You almost need the schematic laid out to show and explain to people, but your taxes could still go up when everything else is coming down.
Yeah, that's hard. So what is the Save Our Home Act or bill or whatever? What is that?
It just says that they can't raise your uh, your taxable value more than 3% a year on homestead property. So if you're in there and your homestead, that's the most it's going to go up, regardless of what values do it. I mean, values may go up 10%, but the homestead property cannot go up more than 3% in a year. And that every year it just starts getting bigger and bigger. It has. I mean, there's been a lot of growth in the cap values that people have.
Okay. So I see. So, like, let's say I'm just going to use round numbers here. I have a home, $100,000 because I homestead. It's seen as 50,000, and the my real rate would be 10%. Just using round numbers. However, it can only go up 3% at a time. So, if it's at 100,000 and then the home value goes up to 150,000, the rate can still only go up 3% at a time.
And that, and
So,
that, that cap value, the Save Our Homes value, continues to grow many times over years to it becomes half your values, uh, you know, is saved through the Save Our Homes. Uh, and until that value comes down, your taxes will continue to go up while other things are going down around because you're still not up to the value of the property. It's,
okay, I understand that now. So, and
it
since
makes
we're
sense, but it's hard to explain.
yeah, oh, it's hard to understand, but I think I get it now. It's kind of like, okay, I in my little head, and hopefully you've explained well enough. If I can
Well,
understand it, hopefully they can understand it too.
whether it makes a lot of sense or not, it's what the voters approved. It's what, got on the ballot, and voters said yes to it. So the legislature can't do anything. Uh,
Right.
they can't on their own do it. It has to be put in front of the voters, and that's what happened.
Well, s- so as the property appraiser, which is your current role, So if you could explain, because now it's a huge conversation about, well, if we give the people who are homesteading and eliminate their taxes, then we're not going to have any money. We're not going to, basically everything's going to go upside down. Can you explain, because you touched on it, we do get taxes from other places. So it's not like we're going to have to, have shortage for fire and police and all that. Can you explain, I guess, what a property appraiser does, which I know you're always so busy figuring things out, but what a property appraiser does and where our taxes go and how the homesteading basically versus a non-homesteading, how much money we would save or lose from a tax base if we could actually stop taxes from homesteaded properties.
Well, really, the only thing we do, and the only thing we're required to do by law, is to um, locate property, to list property, and value property, and get it in the official records and uh, map it. We've got a GIS department, uh, but and we've got appraisals that to put the value on it and on the end, and we do most of that with what's called a CAMA system, which is a computer aided mass appraisal system. So it's smart AI type stuff. We don't do appraisals one house at a time. They're done by neighborhoods, by size, and it's really a lot of it is done, you know, by way of the computer. But we are not the taxing authorities. We have nothing to do with, the tax rate. But we do have to determine what the value is, and then they produce a millage rate, and there's where you get your tax bill. So whether that's the cities, the counties, the water management district, but in Polk County, you're correct. But like fire in Polk County is a non-ad valorem assessment. So there's your property tax is not paying for fire protection in unincorporated Polk County, whereas cities and some counties obviously use ad valorem revenue to pay for their public safety, the first responders. Now, in Polk County, the primary first responder, which is the Polk County Sheriff's Department, most of that is ad valorem. So their dollars would come from, the property taxes that people pay. But I think that, what they're looking at limiting to, and there was a lot of different proposals, don't know what they will eventually agree on putting on the ballot, if anything, but they are primarily focused on homestead property. So, it wouldn't include rental property at all. Property, industrial property, you name it, just homestead property only. All that could change, but I think that's where they're looking at trying to provide relief is to the, homeowners who are here full-time permanent and have the homestead exemption on the property. That is where they live. They're not coming down in second home or,
Or
uh,
third or fourth.
it's people's homestead.
Right. Can you explain, you say ad valorem. Can you explain what ad valorem is?
Well, ad valorem is a property tax, and it's based on value. So you're taxed on the value of the property, whether that property is worth $100 or it's worth $1,000,000. It's the millage rate uh, times the value will get you the ad valorem tax. And most people would just say property tax.
Okay.
That's the best way, simplest way to get people to understand. And again, in Polk County, the solid waste collection, the solid waste disposal, and the fire services fee are all non-ad valorem assessments. And there's people that are concerned about that because, what some counties and cities have gone to, using non-ad valorem assessment to not have to rely on the property tax or to be able to use the property tax for other things they think are, essential or necessary or maybe even nice. But there's become a bigger reliance on non-ad valorem. So anything that we would do, voters would do uh, with regard to property tax would not be affecting the non-ad valorem assessment. Separate, complete, different deal. The legislature may take an interest in that sometime soon because, those charges have gotten pretty high in Polk County's $750 or something for garbage and fire, which is not a property tax. It is a
Right.
non-ad valorem assessment. Every home, pays the same for garbage. Every home, regardless of the value. It could be a tiny home, or it could be the, biggest home in Polk County, and they're both going to pay the same dollar amount for fire protection and for solid waste collection and disposal. So, so some people are concerned about that.
It's a lot. It's a lot to take in, and it's a lot when all you do is you see your bill and it's like, "Oh my goodness, it's gone up so much." I mean, it's just a lot. And right now, it's like you said, people are hurting right now. Times are tough. So if we did have this on where it eliminated the property taxes for homesteaded property, how much money would that actually take out of the budgets?
Well, we did run those numbers for the county. We offered to do that for anybody. We offered it, and other property appraisers were offering to their legislative delegations to look at numbers, how it would affect the county. And in our county this year, on homestead property, the tax paid is 135 million, and so they would have to reduce, by 135 million somewhere if it was eliminated entirely on homestead property. But I don't. There was some people discussing the possibility of that, but most people were looking at either adding $50,000, an additional 50 in homestead exemption, or 100 in homestead exemption. So on top of what we already have, that seemed like the two most likely, you know, choices that may wind up on the ballot. But if you eliminated all properties, and that would be only the Board of County Commissioners portion, because you got to keep in mind that none of this is designed to eliminate or take any dollars away, ad valorem property tax dollars from the school board.
Right.
That's the one thing the legislature, is not will consider anytime soon, because that's how they fund public education. It's a big
Right.
part of it, and that's what's called required local effort. They want to make sure that counties are, paying and doing what they're supposed to do based on the property value in the county to fund public schools. And the state also provides money, but they have a required local effort. So they're not going to pull anything away from the school boards.
That's a
Even though
good thing.
things are changing with the school boards, with a lot of the, recent legislative changes they've made with charter schools and homeschool. You've got some counties that are just shutting down schools because they don't have the student, population to support the schools, because they've taken some of these alternative pathways that have been created. And like my grandkids are homeschooled,
Mhm.
and they they're doing great, and I think their mothers like it because they know what's being taught to them, and so
Well, they
yeah,
also know the influences they're getting. Sometimes the outside influences in schools are no bueno.
yeah.
You know? So, okay, it seems to me again that if we went through our budgets, I mean, I know if in my household, if we don't have as much money coming in, we go through our budget and say, okay, well, we can eliminate that, or we can, eliminate instead of going out to eat so much, you cook at home. So when I see or hear it's okay, it'd be 100 and what'd you say, 135 million for Polk County that we would lose, I would assume that there's $135 million worth of what I refer to as fluffy expenses. I know, like, for instance, with the cities, they have a lot of public private partnerships, they have a lot of different things. And I just would believe that if people got in there that were really focused on reining in the spending, I think we could do it. I think we could all, as citizens, pull together and rein in some of the spending so that we can pull it down.
Well, I mean, it may come a time when it's not really a choice. It's just something that has to be done. And I
Well,
don't
there's
know
that
what
too.
the county budget, and let me tell you, the county budget is complicated because while they may have say $1 billion budget, which is more than that now, maybe more like $2 billion. But a lot of that money, a lot of it is double counted. And so you can't really look at it. Uh, Gadsby, which is the government accounting financial system requirements, when dollars come in, they could come into one, department, but then they get transferred to another department. And so now that money's showing up twice, and it has to show up twice because these standards that they require, they want to track every dollar. But in the end, so the budget looks a lot bigger than it oftentimes is, especially, when you look at something the size of Polk County. And I mean, maybe, in a small town, a little city, it wouldn't be as amplified, but it can get amplified here when it passes through three different departments. That same dollar is still $1, but it looks like it's three.
Oh, yeah. I wish I had an account like that. I have $1, but it looks like 3.
I don't. It doesn't help much. So
No, it doesn't. So, well, Neil, I just want to thank you so very, very much for taking time to do this. However, don't go away. I have one more question to ask you.
I was say, if you take it from the left pocket and put it in the right pocket, and then put it in your back pocket, that's three, 1, 2, 3, but it's still only one in the back pocket.
That's true. That's true. So, if you could sit down with every citizen in Polk County for 5 minutes and make sure they truly understood one thing about how their government works, what would you tell them?
That their involvement can influence government at all levels, whether it's at the city level, the county level, or the state level. And don't think that it doesn't matter. And I will say this: in the last 4 years that I was a member of the Board of County Commissioners, which was 20 to 24, I don't believe we ever had anybody, maybe once. In the old days, those early days in the 80s and 90s, we had a lot of people that came to the budget hearings, and it certainly had an impact on us. We tried to work around, take into account, some of the concerns that people had. But in these past 4 years, the 20 to 24, my last 4 years there, we really didn't, nobody came to the budget here. Now, do they think that, it won't do any good, so why go waste our time? But we just did not get any attendance at all. The only people that were there were staff members, county staff, sheriff's department staff, other folks who may be, uh, receiving some kind of dollars from the county that were interested in it, but nobody there saying, you know, give us a break. And I just,
Interesting.
I just can't explain it. And I know that's not true everywhere, but certainly true in Polk County that we just didn't have a lot of involvement on, you know, throughout the budget process from folks that said, hey, kind of find a way to cut some of this stuff out and reduce, you know, your requirement from us. But, you know, it, it helps to be involved.
Well, maybe we can get more people there now. That would be good. So, government isn't nearly as complicated as we think. And
Well, no, it's pretty complicated.
it is pretty complicated. But once you understand the different roles, I think it makes it easier for people to, once you understand the systems and how they work, to at least become a part of it. And I think sometimes people just need to take that first step. It's like you said, go to the budget meetings.
Yeah, it's a little, I wouldn't say complicated, but the like the governor and cabinet, those folks are mostly administrators. They're not really policy. They don't, determine how much revenue they're going to take in and how it's going to be spent. Now, obviously, they submit a budget, and the legislature approves their budgets annually, but they can't raise any revenue to speak of. So they're dependent on the legislature. They are folks who are essentially administrators, and the governor, needless to say, is the executive, and more than the others, he does have some authority, executive authority to do certain things. But for the most part, the legislature lays out how those offices will be run and what they're, obligated and required to do. And then you just have the cabinet members in there that are essentially the executive directors. They're separate powers, as it should be,
Mm-hmm.
whether it's in Washington or Tallahassee, and I guess with our charter here in Polk County. So when I was talking about the county attorney, the county manager, the only people that the board members direct, then the manager doesn't direct the attorney doesn't direct the manager, they both answer directly to the board. So you
Who
kind of got
hires them?
the county commission. So you got
Okay.
that separation there as well too.
This is amazing. It's been so fascinating. Thank you so much for taking the time because you really have cleared up a lot of things that may seem small, but I think they're pretty big from a ground floor view, if you will. So, again, thank you very, very much, Neil. I
You're
really
welcome.
appreciate you and all that you've done.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, thank you.